What's up, everybody, and welcome to FPL WildCats Live. Fingers crossed this all goes to plan. Should be all set up. We're only on YouTube today. But first of all, thank you guys for joining so much. Get your questions into the chat. We will get to all of them. And I will pass over to Nim, our hostess with the mostess.
Yeah, thanks, Jay, and welcome everyone to the stream, hopefully. After some massive scores in Game Week 1, it was back to earth with a bang at this Game Week for most of us in Game Week 2. So with that, let's get on with the show. As Jay said, as always, feel free to get those questions in the chat, but we'll get started by reviewing how we got on with our teams, as we usually do in a bite-sized review. If you want to know more about each of our teams, then you can go to each of our channels and we've got a bit more detail on there. But Kurt, why don't you talk us through how you got on last game week?
I'd prefer to talk through Game Week 1, in which Game Week 1, I hate to say it, but I think they must have mistaken me for some sort of god. I couldn't have played it any more perfect. No, I'm going to go over quickly.
Gutted you couldn't stream last week and vote, really, weren't you?
It's the first time I've been absolutely heartbroken that I can't stream, because it's the first time I've been flipping good at the game. 94 points Game Week 1. I'll quickly do both game weeks. Game Week 1, pretty much...
hang on, I didn't realise we were going to slip that in there.
I mean, the only thing I could have done better is have my vice captain or have my captain on Salah or even Sterling instead of Aubameyang. But at the end of the day, 94 points, I can't argue. Every one of my starting 11 scored an extra, a goal, assist or clean sheet, except Walker Peters, who got 2, and Perez, who got 3. Perez, who I found out Game Week 2, is quite useless. But Game Week 2, back down to earth a bit, 49 points, still not too bad. So still keeping the overall rank quite high, but not too good in that actual game week. Again, in terms of point scorers, Digne again, another good game week for him. I captained Aubameyang, solid as ever, another goal. He does like playing against Burnley, I'm finding out. I also brought in Martial for this game week, and he scored a goal. And I've also got Sterling in, who grabbed some points as well. Apart from that, my team was a team that was very good for Game Week 1, but little did I realise I've made too many risks in Game Week 1. Danny Drinkwater not being match fit, didn't count on that. Origi not starting ever again in Premier League, didn't count on that. Gilbert not playing at all or even making the 18, I did not see that coming. I thought he was going to be starting right back as El Mohammadi. I think he's about 93. Yeah, and that was it really. Liverpool, another sloppy goal to concede. I'll let other people talk about that because I'm sure other people are more heartbroken. I've only got the one Liverpool defender. But all in all, it was an okay game week for a team that was falling apart already, and the wild card has been activated. I'll go over that in a little while because there's quite a few different changes. But a good start, which is rare, very, very rare, but I'm happy for once.
Cool. So, Brett, why don't you talk us through how you got on?
Sure. All right, I'll try not to sound too down.
I'll do that for you.
So, unfortunately, Game Week 1 wasn't quite as fruitful as Kurt's. So 65 in Game Week 1, which on paper doesn't sound too bad, but compared to the most of the scores we saw on Twitter, the 80s, the 90s, that kind of seemed to be the norm. So 65, even though that was bang on the average score for the entire game, 65 still felt a lot below average to what the sort of standard was being set as. And yeah, just blanks all round, really. I mean, I put a lot of faith in Perez and Vardy, so 2 Leicester options there, 2 Bournemouth options, King and Fraser. A lot of blanks all round. I took Van Dijk out before the deadline and replaced him with Alexander-Arnold. Obviously, Van Dijk scored within 20 minutes or something of the first game, so that was a bit of a killer, especially because he's so highly owned. So that hurt me a bit as well. And then for Game Week 2, 44 this week, so another bad game week. I've got Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. Obviously, the Adrian mistake sort of screwed me there. Blanks all round. Captain blank from Salah. I had 1 goal from King, but disappointing again from Perez. Vardy, I think he's had maybe no shots on target in the first 2 games, Vardy, so that's a bit annoying. My saving grace this game week was starting Lundstrom, because if I didn't get the 14 points from him, my £4 million budget defender, it was 30 points from the rest of my team. So I actually got a bit lucky there. You know, it's almost like my lack of squad depth ended up benefiting me, because I had to start Lundstrom and he got me 14 points. So that pulled it back a little bit. But if it wasn't for him, it would have been another disaster week. You know, I've got no points in goal either. We've had the likes of Ryan and Pope picking up points. I've got Heaton, 2 blanks from him. Yeah, so really not much to shout about. I'm on 109 points total, 2.3 million rank. Didn't anticipate starting this badly. So yeah, pretty shocking for the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a mix, hasn't it? As for myself, I had a really good game week 1, so I was a bit like I was a bit disappointed that we didn't get around to streaming last week, because and like me, I had a good start to FPL and I got 91 points last week. But yeah, it was definitely a sobering week this week with just 48 points. Ryan losing his clean sheet in the 63rd minute, and both my Liverpool defenders missing out, like you guys too, because of that 83rd Adrian clanger. Dear oh dear, what happened there? Literally, I couldn't believe it when I seen the replays. I was just like, no, what has he done?
Yeah, shocking.
Like, seriously, that's the sort of thing Arsenal do. It's not a Liverpool thing. Don't do these things. So yeah, that wasn't great. Digne was my only defender that did something with his clean sheet and an assist for 11 points. Now I've got that injury concern though, so I'm not sure what's going to happen there. In midfield, there's not much to note on Perez and Dendoncker. I mean, they're Perez and Dendoncker. Salah turned out to be the wrong captain choice for me. After never blanking against Southampton since he joined at Liverpool, he did actually blank against Southampton, which is just typical. So Sterling, of course, would have been the better option with his 6 points. Trossard was my surprise of the week.
Yeah.
So Trossard
Good
ended
effort.
up doing well. Obviously, he scored 2 goals, but one of those being VAR ruled out. So I think I will have to see now whether he's going to be nailed in the future. But
Looks like he's got a nice fixture this week too, doesn't he? So on paper.
Yeah, I was genuinely kind of impressed on watching the replays back. So that's good.
Definitely.
Kingy got to take the penalty, obviously, and grab me the from my team.
With him getting those points in the second minute, I was like, right, here we go. Here we go.
Get ready for
it.
Yeah. But I think the most disappointing for me was Kane. I have to be honest, with just 2 points. I wouldn't have minded about Kane getting the 2 points if Spurs hadn't scored at all. Unfortunately, they did score 2 goals and Kane was involved in none of them, which is really frustrating because it really looks as if he's kind of back to that kind of creating the play again, going further back, all of that sort of stuff. Okay, it's City. So I'm trying to kind of give him the benefit of the doubt that it was City. And for me, it's kind of Newcastle is going to be the time where I decide whether or not Kane stays effectively in my team, because I think he should really be smashing it there, especially as their main striker. And if he doesn't get any returns against Newcastle, I'm seriously going to have to reconsider, whether or not to keep him, because there are people doing better for far less money. So, why should I hold that, cash when others are doing better? But with all that, I did get a little green arrow again, which is good. And I'm now 229,403 in overall rank. So not too bad, not too great.
That's a great start.
I'm not planning on making any major changes yet. I did have 2 free transfers. I've spent one of them on going Gilbert to Lundstrom. Bit concerning because now that means I'm rocking the 2 four male defenders. I'm like, yes, come on, bring it on, the cheapies. But my feeling is that Kelly is going to lose that place any week soon to Sacco. And if Lundstrom is going to be the kind of playing 4 male, then I needed not to be priced out of that. And Gilbert just isn't playing. He hasn't played. He has said, I think, on Instagram that if he gets a chance to play, he will get us FPL points. But what does that mean? I mean, how long do we have to wait to find out if he's going to play or not? So,
Game week 31.
yeah, exactly. So I kind of had to hop off there. So I do have one transfer left, deciding whether to take a -4, but probably most likely to roll. But I do go like into a bit more depth in my video, which is over on my channel, so you can just go check it out there. And I'll pass you over to Jay to talk about his team.
Okay, so I think it's a little bit out of order. You all talk like you're disappointed when you got a lot more points than me. Yeah, my game week was very disappointing. First of all, game week 1, I got 77 points. It was acceptable. I understand a lot of people were higher, but it was above the average. It meant I was about 1.3 million at the time, which is an area where I felt I could still make movements from. Unfortunately, this game week 32 points, so I'm now on 109 points as well. 2.3 odd million, probably the lowest rank I think I've had in the 4 years I've done FPL on YouTube. But I suppose I should look at it as a chance to make a comeback, so to speak.
Yeah, it's a different type of season now.
exactly. It's been a while since I've had a season where I've had to claw back rank.
Yeah, and look, I had a terrible start last season, and I towards the end of the season really managed to kind of climb my way quite far back up. So, it's definitely, it's not won and lost in these few game weeks, that's for sure.
No, I think definitely we're now getting to see more and more data as the game weeks go on, where we can make a bit more informed decisions. So, for instance, I've made the double up on Liverpool decision, even though last season I'm pretty sure I said on stream I don't like doubling up on defence in a team, because if the clean sheet goes, that's the points wiped out. And thank you, Adrian, for that. Zinchenko, unfortunately, couldn't get anything in a game where Spurs didn't have that many chances, but when they did have chances, they converted them. Pope, I wasn't expecting too much from Pope against Arsenal, but he did get 7 saves, so there's hope for save points there. He was actually one of my highest scorers with 3 points, so thank you, Pope. I think also doubling up on Bournemouth hasn't worked out as well as I'd have hoped.
No.
Going for Perez as well. Again, generally I don't like to go for players that are new to a club, that don't have a certain pedigree. And I suppose just my fondness of Perez from last year made me go with Perez this year, when generally I would have avoided it. Sterling I'm happy with because he's still returning points, so I can't complain there. Wish I'd captained him instead of Salah. Bit worried because just watching the game, the Liverpool game, Mane just felt more dangerous to me than Salah. Even if the underlying stats aren't bad for Salah, just Mane seems to have... I didn't expect him to carry on from last year this season. And then up front, I think going with Deulofeu and Jota has just failed. Wolves had 2 hard fixtures anyway. Shame Jota looks good when he's playing in Europe at the moment, but not in the Premier League. And Deulofeu, I don't know what's happened with Deulofeu. He played up front in Game Week 2, so I was hopeful, but I think he had 1 chance created. It looked good when he created the chance, but that's not really acceptable. And then Lundstrom on the bench is a regret, because I looked at Palace against Everton and I thought, there doesn't look like goals coming from this side. And I did consider Lundstrom going into the starting 11, but it was just like, who does he come in for over the likes of Zinchenko, Alexander-Arnold and Robertson?
Yeah.
But to be fair, he could have come in for anyone and it would have helped me.
That's why I kind of lucked out, because I didn't have like a premium in place of him. It was either him at home to Palace or Max Aarons of Norwich, who obviously leaked, quite a few goals. So I thought, well, Sheffield United look a bit better defensively, I'll play him. It wasn't like a headache where I had to bench someone like Zinchenko or something. So I actually got really lucky, because my lack of squad depth I fluked it,
No, yeah, I definitely agree. I think the fact that I have squad depth has almost hurt me, because if I look at my bench, Lundstrom and Dendoncker, both players that I could start. Rico, of course, didn't start in Game Week 2. Button is just Button. He's there because he's 4 million. But yeah, if I had less squad depth, Lundstrom would have been my choice to come in, and then I'd have got those points. But I mean, it's nice to have a £4 million defender that is getting points, a bit like last year. So a lot of work to do. I'm probably going to take a -4 and use free transfers. I don't think I'm going to wildcard personally. So that is where I'm at the moment. And hopefully we can start clawing back those ranks as we go on for the rest of the season.
Just really quickly, the good thing about Lundstrom though was I watched the game and like he was the best player on the park for me. I thought he played awesome. Like he could have had another assist. McGoldrick.
Like I'm a bit annoyed because he was in my squad like all preseason. He was my like 4 mil man, and because I was hearing all this stuff about him preseason, and so like I was dead set. And then literally like a day or two before, there was a couple of Sheffield fans kind of piping up on Twitter saying, there's no way he will continue getting the game time.
Yeah, that's really annoyed me that so many Sheffield fans have said, yeah, he won't start. And the manager's literally saying, no, he's really important to the side. I like the way he's playing.
Yeah, so like that just put me right off because I thought, well, my bench is already so weak. I know Kelly will start at least a couple. So I have to go with guaranteed game time on the bench. And then, and then the last 2 weeks, he's just smashed it out of the park. And I'm like, what? No way. So I just thought, get on it and then worry about it later down the line if I have to, maybe try and get a few price rises out of it. Thankfully, I did it last night and Gilbert dropped and Lundstrom went up. So, so it worked out okay.
Yeah. Like obviously a lot of the fans, because I saw the same kind of rumors, the fans were saying, well, Luke Freeman's going to come in at home, put a more creative player in there. So I considered maybe playing Max Aarons because I thought, well, if Lundstrom isn't going to start, then he'll probably get subbed on and then just get a 1 pointer, So I was fortunate that I was really relieved to see him start. And then he picked up a booking. I was like, oh, here we go. He's just going to get a 1, but you probably get sent off now, But he was spraying balls around the pitch. He was getting forward. He should have got an assist. McGoldrick missed an easy chance. McGoldrick missed 2 easy chances in the previous game as well. So he could have had 3 more assists to his tally already. And the good thing with Lundstrom now is that John Fleck picked up an injury in that game. Luke Freeman came in a more attacking role. And I think with Fleck out injured now, that kind of guarantees Lundstrom a bit more playing time, even though he was probably guaranteed anyway because he's playing so well. That just kind of solidifies it a bit more. And
speaking of which, I think they actually look better with Luke Freeman on the pitch as well. So I actually preferred Freeman and Lundstrom than I did Fleck and Lundstrom.
Yeah, I've definitely been impressed by Sheffield United. That's
I've been impressed generally by the promoted sides. It doesn't feel like we're going to have the same as we had last year, where we've got couple of promoted sides that we just know are going to get absolutely smashed by any decent team. So it's very interesting.
They're definitely up here for a fight, and that's good. It's almost like they got together and was like, right, let's show them what these championship sides are all about. So that's good for sure. Well, I've got a few main topics here to cover whilst Brett's getting a few of those questions together for us. So the first one, I guess, is the big one, and that's if you've had a bad start to the season, is it time to wildcard? So, Kurt, you are wildcarding, I believe,
and you've had a good start.
I had a good start.
A great start. So,
of course, he's always got to break the mold.
Talk us through it.
It's got to break the mold,
why you decided to wildcard.
Normally, in the past, I don't like planned wildcards because something could come up, a few game weeks in the future where you've got 2 or 3 injuries, a couple of suspensions, and then you're looking at your team thinking, I've got 7 players playing. So I never plan a wildcard. But I looked at my team, and the main reason I use most of my wildcards, the first wildcard at least, the second one, I aim to try and overload on certain teams and players and styles when it's a double game week or a good, looking game week. But this time I just looked at my team and think, I was lucky to get 11 players playing this week. In the future, that will drop. Origi was coming off the bench. Walker Peters could get dropped for either Aurier if he stays or Juan Foyth, who I believe. I'm not sure if he's still injured, but I know his suspension's now ended. It's just things like that. And I looked at my team and thought, I don't want to be in a position next week where, even with the players playing, I wasn't happy with the performances. I wasn't happy with Perez, Leicester. Granted, they picked it up against Chelsea. Besides that, they looked really flat in both their games to me. He wasn't looking too good. Salah didn't have the best of games, but it's Mohamed Salah. He can claw something out of anywhere. It was just literally because I didn't have. I looked at a few game weeks ahead, and I thought I'm not going to have many people playing. It had nothing to do with the form, and this first wildcard never has. I just want to make sure I've got at least 11 players picking up points and starting, because then you never know. Like with Lundstram, it wasn't a goal that was well worked into his path and he scored. It just sort of fell to him. Right place, right time. It wasn't a good long shot like Douglas Luiz. It wasn't a well-worked move. It was just a move that ended up, it bobbled to him and he tapped it in. And that's all it was. And that's what you need, players like that, just to make sure you've got 11 on the pitch, and all of a sudden, he's been given a goal by a, maybe a deflection heading into his path. So that was the main reason for my wild card.
You're you've started well, but now you're trying to get ahead of the curve. Is that what you're saying, pretty much?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, if I'd have started poorly, I'd have probably got all sad and thought, screw this. I'll just stick with my team. And
Thanks.
yeah. Sorry, Jay. You're only in my shoes from last year. You're only in my shoes from last year. But yeah, it was literally just I'd started well, so I thought, try and keep hold of what I've got, go ahead, and I've made a few risks. I'll go on to them a bit later, but yeah, I'm happy with my decision, and that's where I go. Also, it's Sheffield United fans.
Sheffield United fans.
I was getting really.
I was going to say, surely it's going to come at some point.
I did slip that in there towards the end.
I know, but it was when I think you said it, I thought, okay, I'll let that one slide. And then Jay said it, I thought, oh no, the blood's boiling now. We are two separate teams, unfortunately, as they've gone up. Rant over.
Okay, run over. Good. So, Brett, I think you are kind of somewhere in the middle. You leaning towards wildcarding?
Yeah, leaning towards it. Yeah, I'm almost certain. I'm almost certain I'm going to wildcard. Maybe once we're done streaming, I might actually have a little play around and maybe activate it. Yeah, I think I wasn't anticipating such a bad start. And look, I get that being patient can be good. I just feel like I'm not comfortable with my squad. And if I remain patient for one more week, I feel like I'm going to put myself at an already bigger deficit than I'm in at the moment. I don't feel confident that the squad that I've got for game week 3 is going to get anywhere near what a lot of other teams are going to get again. So I feel like I can try and give it one more week, but I kind of feel, I already know, or at least I feel quite strongly that my team's not going to do well. I'm going to be another 20 or 30 points behind where I want to be. And then I'm going to have to wildcard into the same team I'll probably wildcard into anyway now. So I just feel like I've had a really bad start. This is my chance now to try and, like you said, get ahead of the curve and try to wildcard into a team that people will wildcard into in game week 4 and 5. Mm-hmm. Look, it might not work out. I might wildcard into a team that actually doesn't turn out to be a good one in 2 or 3 weeks, but I think I can build a team now. Even I know it's only 2 game weeks, but I just feel like my team that I started the season with hasn't gone anywhere near what I was expecting. I've got Vardy, Perez, Joshua King, Fraser and King have got Man City. I haven't got any Man City defensive coverage. No Zinchenko. They've got some great fixtures coming up. I've got no Luka Digne. He's been fantastic. Granted, he might be injured now, but he's been great. Heaton in goal hasn't delivered like Pope and Ryan has. I just think there's so many little, like I haven't got De Bruyne. I don't know. There's so many little things in my team. No, and what I'm looking at, this is another reason why I'm thinking to wildcard now, is that in these 2 game weeks that we've had so far, I think we've identified 2 teams who are below the pace, off the pace at the moment, Newcastle and Palace. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm looking at those teams as the vulnerable teams at the moment. Tottenham play Newcastle at home in game week 3. United, who are very heavily owned, especially defence, they play Crystal Palace at home. There's got to be a clean sheet for United there. So if I stick again with 2 Liverpool defenders and no Man United defence, and they keep a clean sheet against Palace and Arsenal score against Liverpool, I'm going to be even further behind the pack. So I just feel like I need to target those 2 fixtures and try and get back in the game a bit.
Do you not feel, though, that with something I said earlier in my video was that, like, with the Liverpool defenders, especially, like, my concern is that we're seeing Arsenal and we're almost panicking about it because of what's happened in the last game.
Yeah.
And whilst I'm hoping, of course, being an Arsenal fan, that Arsenal will score, I'm still, every time I watch Liverpool, watching Virgil, watching Trent, watching Robbo, and they're having shots on goal, they're, chucking in, possible assists for, Mane and Salah and Firmino to get on the end of. Virgil against us, a corner comes in, that's, an easy goal for him. Like, he'll bang that in all day long. So my concern is maybe we're seeing that and we're just panicking. They've got some great fixtures after that. Now, of course, yes, we're not in the situation where we've got Alisson helping, strengthen that Liverpool squad, and Adrian hasn't helped his cause. But, until that mistake, Liverpool actually looked really quite good, I thought, defensively. So I'm just a bit concerned, like, because I'm with you now. I could take a -4 and I could put Robbo down to Wan-Bissaka, and I could up Perez to Martial, -4 this week, and strengthen my midfield a bit better, because as we all know, Perez hasn't been the player we've, hoped he would be from pre-season.
Mhm.
So I could definitely join that herd, but there is a little bit of me that's thinking, are we getting off too early almost? Are we panicking too quickly about this?
Yeah.
I mean, we know that they're likely to concede, but we've known that all of pre-season. Okay, they stood more of a chance of getting a clean sheet with Addison there. But we know that they're not going to keep bucket loads of clean sheets. The reason we've had those players in is for their attacking threat.
Yeah.
So
No, I get that. Look, I was singing their praises all pre-season. I was saying, look, with Liverpool, you get 2 bites of the cherry.
Yep.
You've got the chance of the clean sheet, but the attacking returns, Robertson and Trent. That's why I wanted the both of them, because 12 and 13 assists apiece was that's unheard of. That's like the most assists a defenders have given ever, I think. So, but I just think it's mitigated circumstances. Alisson's not in goal, so instantly they're weakened at the back. We've seen that mistake that cost us. And I don't know, from the 2 games that I've watched them so far, Norwich and Southampton, I just think they look vulnerable. Like, Southampton should have scored, once or twice on top of the mistake. Ings had a golden opportunity. There was a header as well, I think maybe from Ings or someone, and Adrian made a good save there. I don't know. I'm not going to get rid of both. I would like to, if I do wildcard, I'll keep the likes of, I might get Van Dijk in for his ownership, or try and keep the likes of Trent.
I forgot, because you're on Trent and Robbo, right?
I'm on Trent and Robbo.
So that's like Jay, I think. Yeah, so that's a lot of money tied. Like, I know that Virgil's still 6.5, but there's that little extra.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of other teams that have got Trent and Robbo, they've also got Digne and Zinchenko. And from the first 2 game weeks, I'm thinking, God, that does look a lot stronger. Now, in my squad, I've got Robertson, Trent, and probably Lundstrom at home to Leicester. That's my 3 defenders for this week.
Yeah.
So if Arsenal if Arsenal score and Trent and Robbo don't deliver for this week, and Wan-Bissaka keeps a clean sheet at home to Palace, which Palace looks so toothless at the moment. Again, it's another game week where I'm just falling behind the pack. And then I'll have to, Man United have got such a good run of fixtures. I didn't fancy them to keep clean sheets. And granted, they conceded against Wolves yesterday from a wonder goal. But I watched United and they actually look decent defensively. Like, Maguire and Wan-Bissaka was on the bonus again yesterday before the goal. I don't know. And I just think they're so heavily owned. I'm falling behind the pack. United have got some great fixtures coming up. I feel like I just want to cover that. And at the same time, I can attack the game. I can get De Bruyne and maybe Kane in at the same time. Just really try and attack the game weeks now.
So would that be, I know you haven't really looked, but is that a team with Kane, KDB, Sterling, Salah?
I put a few drafts together. I have had a little play around. Yes, I would incorporate KDB, Sterling, Kane, and Salah.
Wow.
However, because I've got strong captaincies in Kane and De Bruyne and Sterling, going that 1 million down to Mane is obviously an option as well. just to beef up the defense a little bit. So,
because I was assuming that's with a fairly kind of weak.
I would be making a lot of sacrifices up front. So I'm looking at a 4-5-1 maybe, and just having Kane up front. Obviously Pukki may be up there as well. But yeah, look, I'd be making sacrifices, but I still think it would be a much better squad over the next few weeks than what I've got at the moment. So yeah, I'll let the other guys get involved now because I'm blabbing on. So sorry, guys.
Jay, so you are somewhat in the same position of Brett, but you have decided that you're not going to wildcard. You're going to kind of maybe, if anything, take a bit of a hit to help yourself out of the spot.
Yeah, so what they call a mini wildcard. The reason I am not wildcarding is because, for me personally, I feel like it would just be a knee-jerk reaction because I did have a decent game week 1. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but it was 77 points. It did put me above the average. 109 points. I think if I had that last season, game week 2, I'd have actually been quite highly ranked, if memory serves me correctly. I think it's been quite a high-scoring first 2 game weeks. I just don't feel like I have enough information to make the best wildcard team possible. We've literally had 2 game weeks. If Liverpool had kept a clean sheet in game week 2 against Southampton, we might not be having this discussion about Liverpool defence. That being said, also, I don't think they looked as solid as they did last season. I think Adrian is an issue. I don't think necessarily he's a bad goalkeeper. I just think if he's going to play in that Liverpool side where he's expected to be decent on the ball, I don't think he's that kind of goalkeeper, which means I could actually see, not an exact repeat because that was just ridiculous what happened, but I could see there being issues because he isn't as good at playing the ball out. And for me, I need the clean sheets as well as the attacking returns because we say we knew it could be a possibility, but last season they got a lot of clean sheets. So the reason they were so enticing to me was, yes, they got 12 and 13 assists. I've got Arnold and Robertson, but they also got lots of clean sheets.
Yeah.
At 7 million, that was amazing. Without those clean sheets, there's going to be players like your Digne's that are just as good at getting those attacking outputs, attacking returns, that could get clean sheets. If Liverpool aren't going to get more clean sheets than Everton, why do I have Robertson over a Digne? Because over a season, potentially Digne won't be that far behind in assists, and he's £1 million cheaper. So I am worried about Liverpool. That being said, all we need is a couple of game weeks where Liverpool do keep a clean sheet, and suddenly, if Alexander-Arnold, Robertson get returns, suddenly they're getting double-digit hauls, everyone will change their mind again. So I feel like with only 2 game weeks gone, I have more pressing issues in my midfield and attack than the Liverpool defence. But Fraser, Wilson, they're the types of players that will return after a couple of game weeks where they're quiet. It wouldn't surprise me if Bournemouth went and got 2 goals against City just because it's Bournemouth and they like to troll people. They like to go and do stuff that we're not expecting them to do. I would like that
very much because I'm not wildcarding and I'm stuck with King this week, so that would be nice.
Perez does have Sheffield United away. There could still be something there. Sheffield United so far, they did very well at home against Crystal Palace, but Leicester are a different kettle of fish. And potentially Perez could find that's the game he finds his feet. So for me, I think 3 transfers is enough because I'd like more information before I make my moves. There is, of course, players I really want to get into my side. I think Kevin De Bruyne is the one that right now I feel like he needs to be in my side, and that is not at the cost of Sterling. So that is a big issue for me, how to fit that in and maybe not get rid of Salah. Up front, I definitely need to change though. Like Deulofeu and Jota. I mean, Wolves had tough fixtures, but Deulofeu should have returned something if he's going to be staying in the side. So I'm probably going to take a -4 and make 3 moves with the idea of saving money for Kevin De Bruyne. And the issue is to save money, the easiest way is to downgrade those Liverpool defenders if I'm not getting rid of Sterling and Salah. That's the only reason I would get rid of Liverpool, because I think 2 game weeks isn't really enough information for me to decide if I should or shouldn't have them. And we do have a super chat. Just what I mentioned.
We do, yeah, Steve, a very generous £10 from Steve.
Wow, thank you, Steve.
Thanks so much. he doesn't ask a question this time, but I'm sure you might have one later. He basically says a wild card is not about the points scored. It's about how many problems you see in your team and how many points it would cost to sort out those problems.
True.
So a -12 or maybe a -8, then I would wild card. That's his opinion, And yeah, I feel like to solve the problems in my team at the moment, without the likes of Zinchenko and Digne, like such a weak defence, and no Kane, no De Bruyne, Fraser and King against Man City this week, Vardy and Perez not performing. I do feel like, a -8 probably is what I would have to spend maybe to fix my team. So
I think for myself, it's been difficult because I had a really good first game week. This game week didn't feel as good, but obviously I still got a green arrow in OR. I mean, the rest of my leagues are red, like I've dropped well down in those, but in OR I've actually gone up. So I'm sat here thinking like I could wildcard and get ahead of the curve and be like, okay, this might be an opportunity to stay ahead of the pack. Because when I look at my team this week, my team doesn't look that great either this week. That a lot of the same players we all had at the start of the season are all going to have the same fixtures. So, I've got double pool against Arsenal. I've got King against City, so, I mean, I'm playing Dendoncker and Trossard in midfield at the moment, Perez has been a difficult one for me because obviously with Sheffield United, they should be getting something there, but Perez has kind of made me a bit concerned. I've watched him, both games now, and I'm feeling a bit concerned about how he's coming across. But it's all about Kane for me this week, if I'm honest. I can't really do anything else in my team unless I downgrade one of those Liverpool defenders or I get rid of Kane. And for me, I just can't get rid of him ahead of that Newcastle fixture.
Definitely not. I really want him for that fixture.
The two players that I would really like if I was wildcarding right now, and this is the only reason why I'm not wildcarding right now, is that it's just two players at the moment, and I'd be kind of shifting around my whole team just for these two players, and that is for Zinchenko and KDB. Now, what's frustrating is I realised that on Monday morning that if I'd moved Gilbert to Lundstrom and done Perez to KDB on Sunday night, I could have actually, Robertson to Lundstrom and KDB for Perez on Sunday night, I could have afforded that. Granted, my defense for a week or two would have been very, even more shallow than what it is now. But, I could have had KDB in and then worried about the rest around it. So I'm really against this whole price changes before the game week has even ended. I just think we should be allowed to enjoy our weekend of football and not have to worry about price changes, So that was frustrating. It's not going to be an easy move. And yes, it's going to cost me a lot more down the line to get those players. Right now, I have a very easy route. I can just downgrade Kane to a cheaper forward and then upgrade Perez to KDB. But obviously, that is at the expense of losing Kane. And actually, on that note, I do have some stats here because I know a lot of managers and their wildcards, they're struggling a bit like you, Brett, in terms of wanting to squeeze everyone in. But instead of trying to get all of those players in, it's either or with KDB and Kane. I've noticed on Twitter, it seems to be which one do I go for?
Yeah.
So I've looked up the stats in the Fantasy Football Scout members area. So feel free to check that out, guys, if you want to look at these yourself. But it's basically the goal king versus the assist king. Kane has 2 goals to KDB's 3 assists. The XG is 0.89 for Kane compared to 0.21 for KDB. Yet in expected assists, KDB is superior with 0.93 compared to Kane's 0.16. So overall, given the fact that KDB can get clean sheet points and he's cheaper, if you were either or, it does kind of look like the favour is in...
The value is there, isn't it?
is in KDB. Of course, you know, Kane's all about the goals, and with a couple of fixtures, easy-looking fixtures coming up, if it's possible, like what Brett's doing, and you don't feel it's at the expense of the rest of the team too much, you could maybe try and squeeze both in. But otherwise, it's going to be about what you feel is most valuable to your squad. But I felt it'd be worth kind of just putting that out there, because I do know that there are a lot of people choosing between those two in particular, and then shaping their team around them, along with the Sterling and the Salah, say. So, I know we're talking a lot about wildcards. I think it's mainly because it's the hot topic of the week. I just wanted to see if we had any questions that you feel, you know, might be worth giving a shout out, Brett, before we just maybe, because I'm sure we'll circle back to this kind of whole thing, because I know that Kurt, you want to give us a bit more information on your crazy picks. So we'll just get a couple of questions.
They're not so crazy anymore.
Yeah.
Okay. Just flicking through some questions. Okay, so Jeff wants to know if we were to keep 2 premium defenders from the 2 games we've seen so far, which 2 would you keep from the premium defense? What do you reckon, Jay? Is there 2 premiums that are particularly stuck out to you so far in defense?
I'd say if we consider premium as 6 million, then the ones that have stood out to me have to be Kyle Walker and Digne. I mean, Digne's got 2 clean sheets and that assist. We know Digne's capable of assists. We know he's capable of some goals. With Kyle Walker, I never really considered him. One, because of the transfer of João Cancelo coming in, so that's a bit of a worry. But potentially he's coming to play left back. If whenever he's match fit and ready, he could come in for Zinchenko, which is a worry. But he just looks like potentially this year might be a year he feels like he has something to prove. The pace he's shown in the last 2 games has been pretty incredible in some certain situations. Absolutely. And he's been getting into positions where he could be the assister for the goal that Man City love to score, which is a wide player passing it into the likes of Sterling and Aguero for a tap-in, because we see City do it time and time again. So Kyle Walker, for me, the eye test more than necessarily the stats, although the stats aren't too bad on Kyle Walker. Those are the 2 6 million and above that I'm looking at and I'm interested in. If I was to drop it down to just 5.5, then Maguire and Wan-Bissaka are interesting, because I think that defence is made stronger by the inclusion of both of them. I think had it just been Wan-Bissaka, I'm not 100% sure how well it would have affected that defence, but with Maguire and Wan-Bissaka, I think they could potentially keep some clean sheets this season. And then also a shout out to Emerson from Chelsea. Like, he looks like he could be in the position to score some goals or get some assists. And at 5.5 million with Chelsea's fixtures, I'm not saying he's going to be Golonso from a couple of years ago, but he looks very promising in that position. And I do like how Chelsea start games. I'm a bit worried about the second half, because I think twice now I've watched Chelsea, and in the second half they don't look like they can keep up the tempo that they start in the first. And that's where generally both Leicester came back into the game and Man United dominated the game in that second half. So a bit of a worry there as far as clean sheets go, but Emerson definitely looks like he does offer some attacking threat.
What's frustrating is I did have Kyle Walker in my pre-season team. You know, when Laporte got injured, I switched him straight away to Kyle Walker. And I remember showing it to a few people, and they're like, no, don't go anywhere near Kyle Walker. And I was like, oh, I think he looks quite decent sometimes. You know, he gets forward, all these sorts of things. Completely talked out of it, even when I said I wouldn't let myself do that this season. And so it was. For me, I don't have him, but Zinchenko is always a worry. Every time I watch City, he is bombing forward. He does look kind of Mendy-esque almost, you know. I mean, at 5.5, it's kind of it is a bit kind of behind the sofa when I can see him running, you know, at the defence.
Yeah.
So the worry there is, does he keep his place? I mean, I don't see how he's dropped given how well he's played, but I know that, you know, Pep wants to include Mendy again. So how he works that, I do not know.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, another reason why I don't really want to be kind of wildcarding yet, because I'm thinking all of these things are still yet to come, you know, and some of these players are still yet to come into these teams. And, you know, so the squads aren't really fully settled yet. And then I've got Digne, and I have been very happy that I've kind of stuck with him. Obviously, now we've got this injury thing, which isn't brilliant, but that Everton defence is, you know, again, Pickford all pre-season and then went to Ryan. So, you know, a lot of that was obviously so that I could accommodate somebody like Kane, you know, who's obviously going to cost more money. And in the first game week, that paid off. But whether it will pay off, you know, the whole season, because I just feel like Pickford could be the goalkeeper this season. I was saying not all pre-season, and I still think it now. You know, those fixtures, he's good enough to be one, you know, first or second on that FPL goalkeepers list. So Everton defence and, yeah, Zinchenko probably for me. But if I was going United, I'd actually be more tempted to go with Shaw. That's nothing against Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka, bonus point, magnet.
Yeah.
You know, he's owned by however many. So if he does something, you know, then those that don't have him are a bit stuffed, really. You know, last night I put out a tweet kind of pretty much downing Wolves a little bit, like, are they the new Burnley? You know, they're gonna have all their time taken up midweek and then be rubbish midweek. Literally, as soon as I put it out, they scored, and a bit of me was like, yes,
Standard.
I've achieved my goal of like not allowing all those people with Wan-Bissaka to get a clean sheet. So
Yes, that was
Okay.
really. That was
Next game week, I need you to say, "Oh, Jota clearly lost it," and I'll be very thankful.
So,
now that you mentioned that name, Brian Ewell earlier in the chat, one of his questions was about Luke Shaw, actually. He
okay.
says, is Shaw being slept on? He's only 2% owned, yet is more attacking than Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah, I just, like, I came in about 3 goals away. Well, no, probably about halfway through that match last night. And I have to say, I spent most of the time watching him. You know, I just felt like he was all over the park. He was, you know, getting forward. He had shots on goal. You know, it feels like it's only a matter of time before he does something, if you see what I mean. So I think he is very much being slept on.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not sure which one out of the two is going to be the better over the season, but like just right now, I kind of just feel like he didn't have that license as much last season to be the sort of player that he clearly is, you know, that kind of Digne, Zinchenko-esque type player, whereas it feels like this season he's very much being allowed to do that. And last season we know he got something, you know, he did well last season when he was allowed to play and things. So I genuinely feel that, you know, given the time and the space, that it's only a matter of time before he does something.
I think what helps. Sorry, go on, Brett.
Just really quickly, Jay, I was just going to say, I can't speak for him, but actually when I was watching the game yesterday, it looked like Rashford's pass was actually for Luke Shaw for the goal.
Yeah.
And then Martial kind of like stepped in and, you know, finished it really well. So Shaw was in a chance of scoring there as well.
Yeah.
I think what helps Shaw as well is he's playing on the same side as either Rashford or Martial. If you assume that they can swap Martial and Rashford, both are forward-thinking players. They want to cut in, they want to score goals, which means Luke Shaw can overlap. Whereas Wan-Bissaka potentially playing on the same side as Daniel James, if he does keep that slot. Daniel James, not that I know much about him as a player, seems to be more of a natural winger who wants to stay out wide, which means you'd assume that Wan-Bissaka has less space to run into. So that definitely, if that is how they're going to play for the rest of the season, I'm not saying I saw that every single time Wan-Bissaka went forward, but you'd assume that if the space is occupied in front of Wan-Bissaka, then he's not got it to run into, whereas Shaw clearly does, which led to that chance where that Rashford pass to me also looked like it was meant for Luke Shaw.
Cool. Kurt, so you've done some crazy things on your wild card. We'd like to hear about them.
Well, I mean, I haven't said much this stream, but I had to listen to a long conversation about getting De Bruyne in, and I've sort of played around with it, thinking, am I missing something? But I've done well so far on really ridiculous players. So why bother?
So it's not no Salah this season. It's no Kevin.
No Kev, no Deb.
No Kev. No Deb. No.
As you say, it is
That's
no Salah.
Kevin De Bruyne straight in for me now. Just saying.
Sold. Like Brett has activated and Katie.
That's it. My wildcard's activated. I need Kevin De Bruyne. Doesn't matter how.
No, I am no Salah and no De Bruyne at the moment. Salah has
So
gone.
you're back off Salah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I am interested in the
Salah
VAR
hat-trick.
thing. I'm
Not
still
against
waiting for
Arsenal.
that.
No, hold on. One more week.
I'll take it now. I'll take it now. I need it.
Yeah, a couple of crazy things have gone on. I need to actually go back onto my points so I can remember who I've got rid of. So obviously Gilbert is gone and Drinkwater is gone because Gilbert's not playing. Drinkwater needs match fitness. I can get other 4.5 players without risking the downgrade. And fortunately, I got my transfers in like a couple minutes to midnight last night, and Gilbert went down. So that was a just in time move. Otherwise, that would have scuppered everything. Martinelli has stayed, which is a annoying thing because there's no real value anyone apart from Timo Pukki really consistently. Yeah, Salah's gone, Perez has gone, Origi's gone, and Van Dijk has gone with the main ones, which is incredibly risky. But hey ho, what I've given up trying to care at the moment.
So
He says this getting a great score.
Talk us through your main targets are then, and who's the sort of players, if you're not going for some of the people that we're kind of, people seem to be absolutely obsessed about getting into their wildcards. Talk us through your approach.
Well, I've gone with, I'm a big fan of fixtures. If I look at someone's fixtures and I see a load of green, it doesn't matter if that player has had a dreadful record against them, or if that team has got a dreadful record against them, or if that team just can't defend or attack at the moment. I see green, I'm like, oh, that looks quite pretty on the eye. So, Christensen.
Shiny things.
Yeah, exactly. I've got Christensen coming in because I feel like he's nailed. He should be nailed on. I don't think he would get dropped instead of Zuma when Rudiger eventually comes back. And I think at 5 million, granted, I do think Chelsea have had problems. I do think maybe that's partially fitness, but also partially the team's quite young. The team's quite inexperienced. I think Emerson, was fluctuated at left back. Kurt Zuma hasn't really played for Chelsea in a few years. Christensen isn't a leader at the back. Aspilicueta hasn't seemed himself. You've got Kepa, who refuses to do anything that the manager tells him to do. Young players coming through as well. Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount. So they looks a bit wary, and I think it's more nerves. I think Man United game, in the minute something went wrong, they just all crumbled. Passes are going astray, pushed up higher than needs to, and it just seemed a bit skew-iffy. But Christensen, I feel like, is a good player to have. 5 million, nailed on. A bit like Kyle Walker-Peters, it gives you cover for a big six club that should be there for the long run. Having said that, Kyle Walker-Peters has remained in for now. I've got the option to get rid of him in the future. Todd Cantwell's come in, 4.5. Basic
I
option.
like the look of Cantwell.
Yeah.
I do quite
Especially
like
at
him.
4.5,
And obviously, it's just on one game. And obviously, the next three fixtures: Chelsea, Watford, Chelsea, West Ham, and Man City. So remains to be seen if he does well. But I think he's, for the long run, 4.5 million. You can't really go wrong. Up front, I've gone a bit risky, and I'm sure Brett is going to be fuming at my transfer. But Bobby Firmino's found his way in. I had to have Liverpool coverage, and I think Firmino, he started off quite well. He's got returns in both games. He's not really going to be chopped and changed, and I do feel like I may be wrong in saying this, but I think he's got quite a decent record against Arsenal, which is the big game.
Got a hat-trick against us last year.
Well,
Quite a good record, not great, not amazing.
He this season he should have more returns than he's got actually, Firmino, because he's missed a couple of chances that he should have put away as well in the opening 2 games. So
yeah, I'm kind of wondering. I was thinking this yesterday, actually, just doing my little FPL pondering in my head, and I was sat there waiting for something, and I was like, I wonder if, like, just fast forward 2 or 3 weeks down the line, and we're all going, actually, who'd have thought it? It's not Salah and Mane or Robbo and Trent we should have had all along. It's, one of Virgil van Dijk and Trent / Robbo and Firmino, or Salah and Firmino, It was really kind of ticking around in my head, that he might be one of the kind of attacking people to have. Of course, having Mane and Salah, like myself and Brett did at one stage last season, it looks almost impossible this season given their price.
it is tricky, yeah.
So, in terms of another attacking player, if the defenders just aren't going to live up, let's just say we have another Chelsea on our hands with the Liverpool defence, and, season before last, I think it was, like, we'd all be over Chelsea defence, wouldn't we, for your Alonso's and stuff like that for the attack. And then obviously last season it just wasn't the case. Hardly anyone's got Aspilicueta, all these sorts of things. And I was just wondering, just say it ends up being the same sort of thing with Liverpool, that of course, Robbo and Virgil and Trent, they all have that potential to get attack, but we're all thinking actually the clean sheet potential just isn't there this season. Then you take that away and Firmino suddenly becomes a really good option again, because he's a way into that forward line. Of course, what happens when the whole Champions League thing kicks in, and because he always seems one of the ones that gets rotated quite easily, I think, and with Origi doing quite well as well to start the season, but I was just thinking he's doing quite well already. Maybe Klopp might just give him that chance. So actually, it's not that out there. Not as out there as you might think. I approve, actually.
Played well the opening 2 games.
Yeah,
very well.
It's not 100% out there, but as an interesting and weird option. But it's not something that you think, oh yeah, forget about him, because it's so. Mane started well now. He's his first game he started, he's looked good. Salah obviously is go-to from the last 2 seasons. I think he'll get overlooked. The 2 weird ones come in midfield. This is something that I want both of your everyone opinions on. First one, £6 million. I've brought in Mason Mount, and it may be a knee-jerk decision, but again with Christensen, I see the green and I like it. I like the way he pressed. And I think he is going to get the nod in that number 10 role. He's got the option to, I think in one of the games this season, whether it was the Super Cup or the first game week, he's moved out to the left. So to me, that sort of indicates that Lampard's happy to play him no matter what. And obviously with Hudson-Odoi coming back, that'll remain the test of time now. But I think at £6 million, potentially with Chelsea's tough 2 games out of the way, you're looking at Liverpool at home, game week 6, and then there's no real tough game until Man City, game week 13. There's a Wolves away at game week 5. That's it. They've got
There's
loads
a lot of green there. There is a lot of green there, Kurt.
Best. So,
do you know what? I was just when you were doing that, I kind of had the song in my head. I like the way my moves.
Is that an actual chant, or has Nim just made it up?
No, I just made it up.
There you go, Chelsea fans.
You were like, I like his green arrows. I like that he's on the wing. And it just started to sound like the song in my head. Sorry.
To be fair, to back it up though, I've been looking at Mount as well. 6 million, Chelsea midfielder. It looks like Lampard. I'm not going to assume that he sees himself in Mount, but he clearly likes something about Mount, and it's 6 million for a Chelsea attacking midfielder. With the way they start the first half, the way they play in the first half, I think there will be goals there. They created a lot of chances against Man United and Leicester in that first half, and I think Mount has taken chances well. He looked good in the European Super Cup as well in that first half. So I really like the look of Mount as well. And at 6 million, he's that kind of price bracket where if you're trying to get money for moves elsewhere, that's beneficial for you. If you're, say, bringing him in for a Fraser. Perez, you're not getting as much, but if you're bringing him in for someone like Fraser, then that's 1.5 million potentially. Rough. I think Fraser may have dropped by now. But
The only thing there is that we were almost saying the same thing pre-season about Barkley, and then he didn't start him in the last game. So it's like, my only concern is how nailed is he long term? That would be my only concern.
the way I look at it though is it's game week 2. There's the potential that unless you're looking at your Salas, your KDBs, your Sterlings, how nailed is anyone really?
Yeah, true. But I mean, for you and I, it's a bit different because we're kind of bumbling down the road a bit until we wildcard. Whereas for me, if I was wildcarding, I'd probably be looking to more certain, because the last thing I want to do is wildcard and then feel like I've got to suddenly, somebody's not playing and I need to swap them out
Yeah,
straight
you don't
away.
want to be in the same position that you found yourself in, having players like Curtis that aren't playing now from his, because it's like sort of like you're on a wild card in game week 1, aren't you? Because you're building your squad.
Yeah.
Now you're stuck with players that not all are playing. There's injuries and Gilbert hasn't started and whatever. So now it's like if you're wild carding, you're saying like you wouldn't want to wild card into other players that still have a little bit of uncertainty, because you could find yourself in the same position again.
Well, I'm probably going to jinx it for Kurt, but I think Mount will play in game week 3 and 4 at least. And unless he starts having bad performances, I think Mount is going to be... I just have the feeling Mount is going to be pretty nailed on. So sorry, Kurt, if he suddenly stops playing, that is all on me.
People in,
Anyway, as I was saying,
agree as well.
Bringing in, he's not in my wild card. Cover myself off.
A lot of people in the chat agree, Jay. People saying, he's played 90 minutes in both the games so far, 120 in the Super Cup as well, I think. So, and the good thing about these young players like Mount is that like they're not aging and getting complacent. Like he has to play maximum effort to keep his place, and he knows that, and he wants to impress. And like it's almost like he's so appreciative of the opportunity as well. Like it's great to see. Like he has looked very, very good, and pressing and. Yeah, he was at Derby last year. So he played with Lampard last year. So obviously he really likes him. And he had a whole year with Lampard at Derby last year. That's a whole year for Lampard to think this player's quality. Obviously, it's not like he doesn't know anything about him. He's given him a chance. Like he knows he obviously likes him, So
yeah. The other one that's impressed a bit actually for me at just 5 minutes is Jorginho. He's looked as if he's getting amongst things, and getting some chances and stuff. And at 5 mil, that
for 5 million,
you're
not going to find many.
Yeah, he did look as if he might, grab something.
Is he on penalties? I don't know if he's
sort of unconfirmed, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
He is.
I don't really know.
I mean, if Barkley's not always starting, then he must be, really.
Why can't keepers save his penalties though? He does the same thing every single time.
The little jump. That little
jump. He waits for you to go one way and he'll put it the other way. Like, it's not that difficult to figure out. He's never done anything different.
It's the jump. It confuses them. They're not
Well,
ready.
that's the thing. Like, they said, I think, in the European Super Cup, they went, okay, Adrian knows what he's going to do. And then Adrian still moved. And it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Okay, cool. Right. I think we ought to start thinking about wrapping things up. So we'll take one more questions and then we'll do Jeffers Corner. So Brett, any standouts?
Cool. And just quickly, Edison says in the chat that
Edison's in the chat.
not the Man City goalkeeper, Edison Massini, a frequent viewer of ours. He basically makes a note that Jorginho did take the penalty in the Super Cup as well. So that's kind of a bit of information there for us. There's a lot of people chatting about Ceballos because we're talking about budget midfielders. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that rightly. Ceballos,
I think it is.
Nim, obviously Arsenal fan. He's 5.6 million. Did look excellent in the previous game against Burnley. What do we think? Have you considered him as an option?
He's amazing. Like, I love him. I'm glad we've got him. We need to sign him up full time. That's the Arsenal fan in me. And then the other bit of me says that Emery had Lacazette and Aubameyang playing last season, scoring goals last season, and he still dropped them without any explanation. And we were sat here for a long time at the start of the season going, but we don't know which one's going to play. Which one should we go for? And my gut is telling me that I need to leave it another couple of weeks, because there's still a lot of players in that midfield that could still yet be squeezed in. Obviously there's Ozil. People are just full off, like, just saying, well, Ceballos is better than Ozil. Yes, he is. I agree. But the problem is that Ozil costs so much money. Arsenal shouldn't really just be leaving him on the bench. Like, I know we have to go with the better player, but is that what Emery is going to do? Because pre-season, Emery was using Ozil a lot, and then we've had this little mishap with the whole carjacking thing pre-season, the start of the season, and that seems to have kind of jigged Ceballos into more of the thinking. But maybe once that's ironed out, I could see Ozil potentially getting worked back into the squad, unless obviously we can offload him. But there's a bit of a concern. Obviously, we've got Torreira that needs to squeeze in there, Mkhitaryan that needs to squeeze in there, Xhaka needs to squeeze in there. They're not the same positions, obviously, but it's giving Arsenal and Emery options to set up that team differently depending on the opponents that we face each week. It's giving us, strong people to bring off of the bench, all of these sorts of things. And so I just wouldn't be surprised to see rotation there. Now, if I was wildcarding and I knew I had somebody strong on the bench to come in should Ceballos not play, then I'd be absolutely all over it. But where I'm at the moment with my team, I'd be kind of just swapping Trossard for Ceballos, and I feel like I'm almost in the same position with both of them there, that either of them could get rotated depending on how the manager wants to set up the team. And so for me, one of my priorities will be, unless, they settle into their role and they are regular starters, would be trying to get somebody in there that I'm not going to have that risk with, just because I can't afford it with the bench that I have to miss out on players not playing, really. So I just would say he's a definite punt, especially for his price. And I'm glad we've got him, and we definitely have to sign him up. If anyone at Arsenal has connections that Arsenal's watching, sign him up full time. He's our new Santi Cazorla, as far as I'm concerned. Like, he looks excellent. So I have heard somewhere that he's contracted that he has to play 40 games in a season. Whether that is just Premier League or whether it's across all competitions, I'm not sure. But that might mean that he does get a bit more game time than other people. It's just a bit too early for me. That's pretty much my gut is just saying it's just a bit too early. Like, I still don't feel like I know Emery enough. Like, if this was Arsenal, I'd probably be able to give you a bit more of a kind of yay or nay answer. Like, yeah, go for it, or no, like, it's not going to happen from here on in. But with Emery, we're still kind of learning about him a bit and what he likes to do, and I'm just not sure that's kind of a nailed position yet. So
Sure.
But it's definitely his to lose, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, that's what I'd say on that. Anyone got any opposing views?
I'd just like to add that the fact that he's got Liverpool and Tottenham next helps in the kind of wait and see kind of area. If it was good fixtures, which I think Arsenal have great fixtures from Gameweek 8 onwards.
Yeah.
Then it'd be a bit like, should I just take the risk? But with Liverpool next and then Tottenham, it's just like, okay, let's wait and see. Let's see what Emery does against some big teams. See if he's a starter against them as well, and then we'll get a bit more information on him. But I was definitely impressed with how he played against Burnley. My issue there is it was against Burnley. If he'd put that performance in against, say, City, I'd be like, okay, we need to take note now. But the fact it was against Burnley, and not that I think Burnley will have a much better season than they had last year without the Europa League. Barnes seems to be firing. There's a lot of players there that want to impress. I think Burnley will be an area where we will be looking at when they have good fixtures, but I think Ceballos, we can wait and see on him.
Yeah, cool. And so I just wanted to quickly touch upon the main man that everyone's talking about this week.
Who would that be? I have no idea who you're talking about.
The Pukki party, of course.
Poor Vardy. Poor Jamie Vardy. He's lost his party.
He's lost his party. Somebody else is having it and everyone else is there instead. So a quick thoughts, like literally a quick wrap up. Well, go around each of you. I just want to know whether or not you think this is a bandwagon or whether you feel like, you know, Pukki might be the next Jimenez and the real deal. So Kurt, is he in your team at the moment? And what are your thoughts on the Timu?
Yeah, he could be in my team, but that would require getting rid of Firmino or getting rid of someone else.
That's usually how it works.
It could be my team if I had 50 players.
If I could transfer somebody out.
If I could play 4 up front.
But no, it's only because I've got Martinelli at 4.5. It requires Aubameyang or Firmino going, which and I'd have to. It's either that or I'd get rid of Sterling or Martial to get him in there. But I think I am interested in him. It's definitely one that I'm looking out for, just for the simple fact. In the Liverpool game, you know, granted he scored a hat-trick against a Newcastle side managed by a snake, but he's also scored. He was given one chance at Liverpool and scored it. And that is a key thing. If he'd have had, let's say he had one chance, and let's say rocketed it into the crowd, you think, oh, maybe not. But he was patient, had nothing. One really good chance. Oh, that's what interested me. And then obviously he scored a hat-trick against Newcastle. Bearing in mind Newcastle looked quite good against Arsenal. Arsenal managed just one goal against them. I think Pukki looks good, and we'll have to wait and see, but he's got 4 goals in 2 games, and he just looks like every time you put him through on goal, he's that bloke who's just going to finish it.
Yep. Jay?
Yeah, I have to agree. I really want Pukki in my side. The issue is, if Pukki comes in because he's risen in price, if I'm not bringing him in for Wilson, then that doesn't save me money to get towards De Bruyne. But I think right now Pukki looked good against Liverpool, put away the chance he had. Great performance against Newcastle. Just looks assured, and he has the history from the Championship. I know we always say, oh, it is in the Championship. Can he bring it to the Premier League? But when you score that many goals in the Championship, for his current price, if he scores 2/3 of that, that is still good value for money. And he just looks so assured when he gets chances. I think he will be in my side eventually. Whether it happens this game or not, I don't know.
That's the thing with like Ceballos and Pukki, is that you look at them and you think, yeah, they look so promising, but you'd still be so like you'd be still happy to pay like 6 for Ceballos, 8 for Pukki. Do you know what I mean? That still feels good value if they're going to continue on their form. So it's almost like in the people, like for the people who aren't wildcarding, it feels like it's okay to kind of wait a bit on them. What about you though, Brett? Is he in your wildcard at the moment?
Not just yet, but obviously he's a strong consideration. So like Jay was saying, I mean, Jay said if he gets 2/3, I mean, even if he gets half of his goals from last year, I mean, that would be like 14, 15 goals. That would be more than any 6.5 striker got last season, probably. I think at least that they started on, and 10 assists as well. And notably, none of them were penalties. So that shows that how clinical he can be. It's not like he got like 15 penalties or something. And yeah, he's just obviously taking lots of shots. And Norwich is just, the philosophy of Norwich is just attack no matter what the opponent. So, when they're up against the big teams, it still isn't that bad having Pukki, because you don't need him. It doesn't matter if they lose 5-1 if he scores, all you want is for them to attack, and they're not going to park the bus against anyone. So I do like that about him. The issue I have, and don't get me wrong, I know this is what makes FPL great and difficult, because the price rises, like in pre-season, everyone's a 0 or a 0.5, aren't they? So it's like a jigsaw that works perfectly together because it's on 0.5s. The minute someone goes up 0.1, that changes every plan that you could have had, So it just changes everything, because if you bring him in at 6.6 or 6.7 he is now, you're then left with like 0.3 or 0.4. And that is useless if you wanted someone that's 0.5 extra, like, so at this time of the season, that 0.1 is so annoying, because all the little jigsaw moves that fit together perfectly, that one change affects everything. And so if on my wild card now I get Pukki, then I'm stuck with 0.3, 0.4 million. And that's the difference of a player, or going from Button to a 4.5 goalkeeper where I can rotate my goalkeepers. Like, I'm stuck with that 0.4, 0.3 with Pukki, and that's what's frustrating me. So I want him, but it's so hard to put together a team now. It's like I'm having to sacrifice a player.
So what you're saying is myself and Jay should wait, keep our wild card until he's, what is it, 7
To be honest,
7 mil, and then wild card. And then
he looks like he'll be
No.
7 million by Friday.
It's sorted.
Like,
Yeah,
apparently
he's
he's going to
7
be
by tomorrow, probably.
Yeah,
so.
he's going to be. Apparently, he's going to be 6.8 tomorrow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, like, that's how crazy the amount of transfers coming in for him is. Like, just wait till Friday. He'll be your 7 million. Don't worry about it.
And if I'm honest with myself, that is another reason, partly why I've wildcarded. I think it was the price rises, and I knew that 0.1 change would affect my plans, and I panicked, and I had to make the early transfer. And then, I made 2 early transfers. So I brought in Pukki and De Bruyne with 2 free transfers.
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, I'm still not happy with my team. My defense isn't sorted. I've got double Liverpool defense. But I didn't have time to think about it all week, and then I panicked, made those. I'm still not happy with the squad. I don't know. I think I got a bit stressed about the price change. I panicked.
I think this price rise thing, guys, like, I'm just putting this out there. This isn't going to get any better or any easier or level off the rest of the season. This craziness and the prices is going to continue on the rest of the season, and we cannot wildcard every time this happens. Do you know what I mean?
No.
So
Wait, we can't.
I'm sorry to tell you this, Kurt.
Wait, no. Can't
That's
reuse
ruined
the
my
wild
entire
card?
plan for the season. Oh.
I really genuinely think that that it just is the kind of game we are in now. We've seen it
Sorry,
last
guys,
season.
1 second. I have to go.
Oh,
I'll try not
okay.
to get to Jeffers' corner before I get back.
Okay.
Too long.
So I really think it's the kind of game now that we're just going to have to get used to. We had it last season, and I think it's going to continue this season, where, people are just a lot more instinctive and a lot more reactive to what's going on. So the market is a lot more instinctive and reactive. Yeah. And so I genuinely do not think this is going to slow down like anytime soon. And this is going to be something we're going to see as a growing theme. Now, granted, I can see why you guys want to get on, some of these cheaper players, because obviously they're only cheap once. So, you're going to get a good bump from that. And that is the regret of not doing a wild card now, is that I am missing out on a lot of these rises that you guys will now have, and therefore your bank will be a lot better than mine. But on the flip side of that, it only takes for 1 or 2 of those players to have 2 or 3 bad game weeks, and people will be off of them just as quickly as they got onto them, and their prices will then tumble. So
Pukki doesn't score in the next 2 games, and all of a sudden Danny Ings has a good few games. Everyone thinks, excellent, Danny Ings.
Arms train.
Arms, yeah.
You would love me shouting him out for that one. But yeah, like,
you're completely right, Nim. You're completely right. And I know that's the case, and I think that's why partly it was I've been looking at it too much. I've been worried about the price rise. I panicked. I made transfers really early, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't fixed what I should have fixed, really, the defense.
It's difficult because,
this just panicked.
You do it early, you think you're ahead of the curve, but you've panicked, and then myself and Jay are doing it late, and we're panicking that we haven't done it quick enough. Nobody knows the right or wrong. But, all I'm trying to get at is that, this isn't going to be, for those people who aren't wildcarding, maybe who are sat here now doing the panic that me and Jay are maybe having, that we're seeing everyone gaining all these price rises and stuff like that, but they're sat there going, actually, I've had 2 okay weeks, and even if I wildcarded now, I wouldn't exactly know what to do with it. Like me, I want 2 players, and I'd be changing my whole squad just to accommodate 2 players. And so I'm just trying to say that, there will be other booms in the market, down the road, and there'll be drops in the market later down the road. And, hopefully there will be other opportunities for people like us wildcarding a bit later to, to gather that momentum and grab those.
I'm assuming we're still talking about price rises. And
Yes.
I have to disagree just a little bit because right now is when the most active players are around.
Yeah, well, I did actually.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I did. I say like I like that's the one thing is that obviously a lot of these cheaper players won't be as cheap as this now. Going forward.
So
but
I think,
also, as we were saying, somebody like Pukki has 2 or 3 game weeks now where he does nothing, and just as equally
could drop very quick.
Yeah, could drop very quick. So yeah.
Cool.
Jeffers corner then. Let's get on to that. Jeffers asks, does the fact that you have never done something before increase or decrease the appeal of doing it? So it's a very broad question, Jeffers, but Kurt, come on now. Does the fact that you've never done something before increase or decrease the appeal of doing it for you? I'm not really sure where he was going with this.
That's such a thought-provoking question.
This is
like a paradox or something.
I think so. I think you can relate that back to anything. You relate back to FPL. I've never really wildcarded early, but I look at it and I think, what about this? What about that? All the things I can do is sort of like, oh, it intrigues me. But with anything, anytime I've done something for the first time, it's really exciting. Granted, you can have things that you do for the 7th or 8,000th time that really excites you. Like I'm assuming if you're mid-30s. Exactly. It's stuff like if you're mid-30s, you're picking up your kids from school. I'm not mid-30s and have kids yet, but I'm assuming that would be a good feeling every single day, unless they are arguing, obviously. Memory of a world. It can also be related back to the fact
I can give you some advice on that, Kurt. About children.
Like just under a year or just around a year ago, I did a charity boxing thing for the first time. I'd never thought about doing boxing, but an opportunity came up. I thought, you only get one chance at life, and you may believe differently, but I'm assuming that's the way it happens. And it was just the fact of, I haven't done that before, and it's the opportunity to do it, and it just gives you a good feeling. Anytime I've done something for the first time, it's just even if it goes bad, as like I've done boxing 3 times, I've lost all 3 times, so none of them have ended very well. But it's just doing it for the first time. It's just once you sort of either the excitement or disappointment goes away, it boils down to the fact of, I've done it, and you can feel like, it's like a weight off your shoulders, a breath of fresh air. And I always like to try and do new things, and I think it's definitely. I think I think yes. I've gone around in a massive circle here.
That was a lot. I think yes. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's just move on. Jay, Kurt thinks yes. Jay, what do you think?
Well, I'd just like to asterisk this within reason.
Yeah.
But I have to agree with Kurt and say yes. I think, despite the fact that you can get nerves, of course, when doing something completely new. For me, the fact of doing something new is exciting. If you do enjoy it, it's again something that I think you always enjoy something more the first time that you've done it than you do after that. It kind of, when you get more and more used to something that you're doing, it kind of loses the appeal it had that first time you did it and you enjoyed it. So you've also then got the fact that I don't like to live my life with what ifs. So if I've at least tried it, I now know this is for me, this isn't for me.
That
Suppose you could
jelly beans that you had that one time.
I mean, I'd do it again. Like, I'm not anti doing it again, but I'm just like, even if you take YouTube into account.
Video of
if you find it, if you dive deep enough into my YouTube history, there's some interesting videos. But like even this, what we do now, at one point, all of us had to go out and start and go, okay, this is something new I'm going to try. And look where it's got us. If we hadn't tried it, we wouldn't have met each other, for one. So, like, if you try something, you can open new avenues in your life and you may enjoy whatever it is you've tried.
Brett?
I don't know. This is a tough one. It's a bit confusing. So can you just repeat the question one more time for me, so I can? I have listened to the other guys,
We
obviously.
should really start this about half an hour towards the end, shouldn't we? Does the fact that you've never done something increase or decrease the appeal of doing it?
Yeah, I think it depends on what kind of personality you are. So for me, it probably, the longer I take, maybe it does decrease because you build up more fear, to do something. So I think that's always been my personality, that I'll, maybe not, the longer I leave it, you get afraid of change and stuff, and then it's hard to break out of that. You can build yourself into like a wall, and it's hard to break out of that. But in my experience, when I've had like fears, the moment you actually do it, the feeling that of once you've actually done it, you get like an adrenaline rush, like, wow, I've actually done that. And then, it is worth it in the end. So yeah, I think naturally the longer I leave it, the harder it becomes. But the moment I've done it, like John said, streaming with you guys, like I was so nervous the first time doing a stream, and that's something I wanted to do for years, and I just put it off because I was so terrified. Same with doing a skydive a few years back. I never thought I would do that. And then the moment I did a skydive, I was like, oh my God, I want to do it again. Like that feeling of accomplishment when you actually do it is worth it in the end.
I think for me, it very much depends on what it is. If it's something I'm really interested in or always wanted to do, then it definitely increases the appeal, of course. However, if it is something I really have no interest in whatsoever and have never wanted to experience, so, I'm not like going to be running out to try bungee jumping because I just have never been interested in it. So it doesn't appeal to me at all. So for me, it depends on what it is. I am generally, though, like quite open-minded and like to experience new things and stuff like that. And so I think generally, yes. But yeah, if I really just think, you know what, I'm fine if I never try that, then yeah, it certainly decreases for me.
I just want to put it out there because Brett may agree with me here, but I've bungee jumped and I've done paragliding, and the thought of doing either before I did it was like, why on earth would I want to do that? Why would I want to jump off of something with something attached to my legs, which is just going to have me hanging upside down, bobbing up and down? Why would I want to run off a cliff and trust this, whatever it is, on a metal pole? But when you actually do it, it's so exhilarating, that feeling of like...
Oh, I completely get that. I just have never...
But yeah, it never interested me before I did it.
It's not a fear of doing it. It's not I'm terrified of doing it or anything like that. I just don't really...
Like the reason I did both was because someone else I knew was doing it.
In any way, so...
I think you should still consider it. Yeah. Someone else was doing it and I was like, I can't look like...
I'll do one of those, those wind machine ones. I'd happily do that. Maybe we should do that with the WildCats. They look fun in the tunnels, those ones. I'll give that one a go. Cool. Can we have the polls, please, Jay?
Yes, we can. So I made up the questions myself. Hopefully they were relevant to all of you guys. We had time to wildcard. We have 41% saying yes, with 50% saying no and 8% stuck on maybe. So not very many people on the fence there. Quite a split in the audience there. We've got our Barnes and Pukki essential. We have winning Pukki is at 53%. Barnes is only at 7%, both at 15%, neither at 23%. And then Liverpool defensive double up is, and we have the choice of unlucky or not worth it. And that is split exactly 50-50. I can't see the exact votes, but it's 50-50 split. And then Gameweek 3 captain, the standout options are Kane and Sterling, both getting 30% each, with Salah getting 15% and De Bruyne only getting 7%. Yeah. So very interesting responses there.
Get a chance to touch upon, was it really captaincy? But...
No, we just had so much to talk about today.
Yeah. Cool.
So, I think, shall I wrap it up or you have something else to say? Yeah. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you to the stream gods for everything working well today, which I'm very, very happy about. Do make sure to go check out Fantasy Football Scout. There is a link, the top link in the description there, to their members area where you can get all the kind of information that we've been using in this stream. Do also consider hitting all the likes, the subscribes, the notification bell, so you're informed when we're going live. We're going to aim to go around Tuesday. Time is still up for debate, but we're probably going to aim for the time we went today, around 8:45 to 9ish. So do come back and check that out. Also check out our Patreon, where you can join a Discord group where you get access to us, and also some mini leagues. If you see that top cat, man of the match, that way, there we go, pointing the right way, manager of the month, sorry, you could be up for having your name shown up in lights on the stream, so do consider checking that out. And from all of us guys, thank you so much for joining us on this stream, and we hope to see you next week. See you later.